Hi, hello everyone. Today I'm gonna talk about Chinese dialects. In America, a lot of people ask me, do you speak Mandarin or Cantonese? To some extent, I think it's a stupid question because, first of all, you have to understand that nowadays every young person in China must be able to speak Mandarin because it is required in school. So essentially, you have to be able to speak Mandarin to get education or to find a job. And on the other hand, Cantonese speakers make only about 5% of Chinese population. So if you see a Chinese person randomly, it does not make a lot of sense to assume he or she must be able to speak Cantonese. Okay, that being said, it is true that Cantonese is overrepresented in North America because the old Chinatowns, some Chinese communities, have a lot of Cantonese speakers. However, I just want you to know that nowadays a lot of people from mainland China and Taiwan are also coming, and most of them don't speak Cantonese at all. So the chance of seeing a Cantonese speaker is not that high. And next, I'm going to talk about Mandarin. So what does the word Mandarin mean? The concept of Mandarin has different levels. First of all, it can be used to represent standard Chinese. As you know, China is very big, so they have to have a standardized language to be used in schools and government, the textbooks, the newspapers and TV channels, and so on. So that is a standardized version of Chinese language. Everything like pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary are standardized. Above that level, there are some Chinese dialects that are very similar to standard Chinese. For instance, the dialect of Beijing dialect. Standard Chinese is based on that, but they're not exactly the same. And some dialects spoken in Northeast China are also very similar to standard Chinese, so those dialects can be called Mandarin too. And above that level, some dialects spoken in North China, Northwest China, Southwest China, and East China, etc., are also similar to standard Chinese enough to be called Mandarin dialects. Generally speaking, people from those areas can understand each other even if they don't speak standard Chinese to each other. I mean, if they use their own dialect to communicate, they can still understand each other quite well. So those can be called Mandarin too. And if we include those dialects, Mandarin speakers make about 70% of all Chinese population. So it's a huge area. Besides that, I have talked about Cantonese. Cantonese is, of course, not a Mandarin dialect. It is spoken in South China and also in Hong Kong and some Chinese communities overseas. And because Hong Kong is there, Cantonese is a very influential language, influential dialect. They have a lot of like pop songs, movies, some publications. So it's more influential than other dialects, I would like to say. I just want to point out that Cantonese does not really have a standardized written language. So the formal books or newspapers and so on are still published in standard Chinese, or you may argue, it's still Mandarin. But I mean that Cantonese does not have a standardized written language. They use standard Chinese in those publications. What else? And as we know that Shanghai is the largest city in China, and the dialect of Shanghai is called Shanghainese. Shanghainese is a member of Wu dialect, Wu, W-U. Wu is spoken in East China. Major cities include Shanghai and Hangzhou and Suzhou. It's not a big area, but it's a more developed area of China, and there are a lot of people there actually. And the problem is that Wu dialect has a lot of internal diversity, so people from different cities may not be able to understand each other. So oftentimes, they use Mandarin to communicate. That might be one of the reasons why Wu is not as influential as Cantonese. And another important dialect is Min dialect, M-I-N, Min. Min dialect has some different subdialects, and the most significant one is Minnan dialect, or South Min dialect. And it is spoken in Taiwan and also in southern part of Fujian province, some parts of Guangdong province and Hainan Island, and so on. So it is also commonly used in overseas Chinese communities. And there's also another dialect, Hakka. Hakka is spoken in parts of South China, and also it's an influential language in overseas Chinese communities. And another dialect is Xiang dialect, spoken in Hunan province. And Chairman Mao was a Xiang speaker, so his Mandarin was actually quite bad, heavily influenced by Xiang dialect. And another one is the Gan dialect, G-A-N, Gan dialect, spoken in Jiangxi province. And sometimes the classification is controversial. For instance, in North China there is a Jin dialect, J-I-N. The Jin dialect used to be considered a subdialect of Mandarin Chinese, but now people tend to think it's a separate dialect because of its phonological features, because the pronunciation of Jin dialect is quite different from other Mandarin dialects. Okay, so I think as a summary, you need to understand that nowadays everyone in China speaks Mandarin because it is required in school, and the word Mandarin has different meanings, and oftentimes it just means standard Chinese, but in a broad sense it can be used to refer to a lot of dialects spoken in North China and in West China and so on. And Cantonese speakers make only 5% of Chinese population. So if you want to compare that to Mandarin speakers, it's really a very small group. And what else do I want to say? And nowadays, only Mandarin has a standardized written language. All the other dialects do not have a standardized written language. So all the publications are in standard Chinese. What else? That's it, I think. Thank you.